Hey guys, happy new year everyone. Today I just want to make a video about discussing some of the career goals that I have for this year, some technical things that I want to learn, my sort of like dev goals, and I just want to, describe and discuss how I'm planning to go from junior to senior developer this year, or going forward, or the things that I want to learn, the things that I want to do to eventually get to the senior developer level. Just to give you a brief background of where I'm at right now in terms of my career. I did my degree, and I've been working for 2 years. And right now, I'm kind of at a point where I am comfortable with writing code, especially like code within enterprise applications. I can write. I can write decent Java. I can be given a problem, and I can solve that problem and code up the solution to the problem from end to end. That's like from the database to the backend to the front end, and a bit of the deployment as well. So that's where I'm at. So with this year, I kind of don't want to just spend the year doing some side projects which are limited in scope and which just reinforce the knowledge that I've already have. I've noticed as the year, especially last year when I was really working and I was working within a team, I started noticing some things that other people or senior developers or managers, some skills that they have, some knowledge that they have that really makes me say, oh wow, this person knows what they're doing. And a lot of this knowledge is knowledge that you don't stumble upon, right? So a lot of the knowledge that I've gained now, coding wise, is knowledge that I've managed to get and attain as a result of me doing the job. I did a lot of it. I didn't intentionally have to seek it out. But the stuff I'm going to discuss today is going to be stuff that I am going to be learning, stuff that I'm going to be intentionally taking time out of my day to read about, to learn about, to experiment with, and hopefully this is going to move the needle with regards to my contribution to the team that I'm working at and any future team that I'm going to be working at. So without further ado, let's start off with my list right there, and I will be reading it. Thank you. So number one on my list is going to be databases. I use databases every day at work. I can write SQL queries. I have a basic understanding of how databases work. But this year, I want to deepen that knowledge. I want to start learning about SQL databases, advanced queries, really get a grip on how to do joins and some advanced SQL queries. I want to be able to understand indexing, performance, and other things like just general good database design, optimizations, and also more deployment based, like having databases in production, things like replication, scalability, sharding, and a lot of these things I kind of have an idea of what they are, but I can't speak about the problems and the types of solutions that are there. So for example, with sharding, I have an idea of what sharding is. I did it in honors. I know what sharding is. I know what horizontal and vertical sharding is, but I want to spend some time understanding some of the problems that sharding seeks to solve. And I also want to find out, the drawbacks of this type of sharding versus that type of sharding, and of course, a lot of this knowledge, I might not remember it going forward, but it's things that one day when I'm faced with a problem, I'm able to talk about it and I'm able to search and find out more information about a particular thing that we're trying to solve. So yeah, databases, SQL databases. I also want to understand how Postgres works, how it enforces ACID compliance, and then also get into NoSQL databases. I already use Redis at my workplace. I want to understand MongoDB and Cassandra, just a bit to see some of the differences between SQL databases and NoSQL databases. The difference between ACID and base, and the drawbacks of each, and when you'd want to apply this versus that. And yeah, this probably won't take time, reading a few articles every day, and hopefully I can get to a level of understanding that I can operate within a team and be proficient in working with databases, writing efficient queries, being able to look at a query and say, okay, how can we optimize this? How can we fix this? How can we make this better? And yeah, that's number one, databases. Number two is going to be networks. And once again, I know networks. I know some basic concepts about networks. I did networks in university and I've done some reading in the past, but I think I want to once again do a deep dive on some advanced networks topics and make sure that I understand the stuff I'm working with when I'm building web servers at my workplace. So things like HTTP, REST, gRPC, caching, load balancing. I also want to understand networks in the context of like cloud hosted servers. And once again, I might also start looking at maybe some cloud, some cloud providers. Maybe I think I'll just do AWS. I probably won't go deep into it, but I just want to learn enough to like such that if I do need to use it one day, I have somewhere to start from. I also want to understand how HTTP and how HTTP works. Last year I had an idea to build like my own HTTP library in Kotlin just to understand how the serialization and deserialization works, how the protocol works, and just get a grip of like what's going on when I'm using the frameworks that I'm using at work to send network requests, and understand some of the security concerns around networks, understand some of the exploits that people usually sort of like use to attack networks, and also understand just basic network stuff, firewalls, and being able to look at a networks problem within the context of where I'm working, and understand what's going on, or at least understand what's going on enough for me to go and then go deep into the problem and search about the problem, and then eventually solve the problem. So yeah, that's number 2. It's going to be networks. The next 2 is going to be Linux and Git. So with Git, once again, I use Git every day, but I just have some basic commands that I use. I want to start learning about Git and learning some of the different commands that I can be using to make my job easier. I understand there's some manual stuff that I do that ordinarily I think there are commands for, and understanding what some of the commands are doing. I remember when one time last year when I put a bug in production, and the first bug I put in production, and my manager called me for a quick Zoom meeting to kind of solve it, and I saw how she was just navigating Git and stashing a commit, and doing this, referring to this commit, and trying to roll back the change, and it just seemed like magic to me, and I want to learn about that and be able to use Git on the terminal. I already use Git on the terminal, but like I want to understand some of the advanced commands such that I can use them when I need to use them. And the other thing is like being able to properly work in a Linux environment. I already use a bit of Linux, but I want to understand a lot of the commands such that like if I have to one day just SSH into a remote server and I don't know, do something in that server, I can just be able to do it. Aside from like the normal basic commands, I want to get a bit of a deep dive into that. I think I also want to be able to edit files from the terminal. Like I don't think I want to go deep into it, like learning Vim and stuff like that. I might learn Vim motions, but I want to be able to just open a file, edit a file comfortably, and exit Vim, and just be proficient on that front, and just have some confidence and understanding when I'm using some Linux commands that I use every day at work. The next thing that I want to learn is distributed systems. I think there's a book called Distributed Systems that I want to read. And if you look at it, like a lot of these things go hand in hand together. Like an understanding of like sharding and replication, it will help in an understanding of distributed systems. I do think that like reading the book and understanding how distributed systems work and some of the problems that arise when you try and use distributed systems, how they work, the solutions that are there, the drawbacks, the pros and cons. That I think I want to start thinking about architecture, software architecture, and being able to contribute within my team, whatever team that I'm going to be put in, being able to contribute on the software architecture of like whatever product we're building. This will also help me start understanding systems design, such that if one day I have to get into an interview, do a system design interview, or prepare for a system design interview, I'm very much aware of the concepts around it, right? I'm not just cramming topics just for the sake of cramming topics. I kind of understand the problems that arise from having distributed systems, having like high loads on your servers, having like a distributed database, understanding things like consistency, and yeah, understanding all that stuff. I want to read that book. I think I'll put it up on the screen. And yeah, the other two things that I want to learn, these ones, I think this is more like a lifelong thing. I think I'm going to continue learning it. Currently my typing speed is very slow. I haven't measured it, but it's very slow, and I've noticed that it ends up being a hindrance from when I'm doing my work. So I want to learn touch typing. I don't have like a specific number of like words per minute that I want to reach, but I want to be able to not let my typing speed be a hindrance to my work. I also want to start getting into configuring my dev environment such that I'm able to, move around folders, move around projects, move code around, copy paste code without having to do it manually with a mouse. And once again, I don't think I'm going to get into like, Vim or anything, but I might learn Vim motions and use Vim motions in IntelliJ. I think that's applicable in whatever IDE that I eventually use. So whether I use VS Code or IntelliJ, if I learn Vim, if I learn Vim motions, I can always like use like a Vim motions plugin within whatever IDE I'm using. And yeah, because I've noticed a lot of times, because I haven't taken time to configure my dev environment, sometimes it's a bit slow, when I'm moving like between two projects, moving between two files, moving code around, moving like from the top of like a project to the bottom of a project. That navigation, taking your hands off the keyboard and like using the mouse, it gets kind of slow. And I do understand why and how, like why people end up, like why you have some devs who end up just like ditching the mouse completely and just using like Vim and using what's the other one, Tmax or whatever, to write code and edit files, because they can just keep their hands on the keyboard and like navigate the cursor around without having to jump, like without having to use the mouse and stuff. I think I want to learn that and basically like start the process of like developing my dev environment that I eventually I'll perfect. I might change it, at some point in time. I'll see what's comfortable. I'll try around things, and yeah. And finally, the last two things that I want to learn and get into, I might not like be able to finish this like throughout the whole year, but I'll be reading up on a lot of this stuff. The last two things are containerization and orchestration. So I want to learn Docker. I know how to use Docker. I've used Docker before, but I've used it like without a lot of understanding, right? If you've used Docker before, you kind of understand that you can get going with Docker without understanding what's going on. And once you run into a problem, you almost don't know what to do and how to solve it. So I want to learn containerization, and then after that I want to learn orchestration. So yeah, Kubernetes. Yeah, I think I want to learn those two. And yeah, I think after I'm done learning all that stuff, if I do get a project throughout the year, I'll definitely like jump on the project and do a project. But this will kind of like, this is not like a 1 year thing that I just want to read once and do, but I want to kind of like start developing a culture of consistently reading and learning topics that I just won't stumble upon. I know some of the devs in my company, what they do is they are always sort of like reading articles. They are always just being up to date with the latest trends, and they are on these mailing lists that are consistently sending them articles to read, and that's how they learn. This eventually, I think it will help me to start having an understanding and an appreciation of like software architecture, systems design, and hopefully it can also translate into my contribution to the team where I work or any future company that I'm going to join. So yeah, that's about it. If you have any dev goals that you want to share, you can comment, tell us what are your plans. Do you want to do a project? And yeah, if you have any questions about like the list that I gave, feel free to ask in the comments. I will surely respond. Anyway, thank you. See you in the next video. Bye.